Konnichiwa, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to my Japanese Faves series, where we'll cover every major type of Japanese food. This lesson is braised beef brisket with Shio Koji and vegetables. This tasty Donabe dish was inspired by a recipe in Donabe, Classic and Modern Japanese Clay Pot Cooking by Naoko Takemura and Kyle Connaughton, which is a great cookbook all about Donabe dishes. I love fall-apart tender beef brisket, which this dish delivers. I've taken quite a few liberties with the cookbook recipe, using my own anything rub and basil pesto instead of the coffee rub and the puree in the book, which is basically a pesto. And I use homemade Shio Koji from my recipe. I have separate lessons on making the rub, the pesto, and the Shio Koji. I've also changed the vegetables and the seasoning, but the browning and braising techniques are basically the same as in the cookbook recipe. So let's start cooking. Okay, here's our beef brisket. It's about a pound, and I've sliced it into about 5 slices, and they're about 3/4 of an inch wide. But it will depend somewhat on how your piece of brisket is cut. Then what I want to do is prick the pieces of brisket with a fork on both sides. What this is going to do is going to allow our rub and our marinade to penetrate a bit into the meat. So we're going to do this with all 5 pieces. Okay, now I'm going to take these pieces of beef, put them into a bowl, and toss them with our anything rub. I have a separate lesson on making the anything rub. Okay, so we're just going to sprinkle the rub over the pieces, and then we're going to kind of rub it in. Hence, they call it a rub, right? Okay, now we're going to mix the marinade. I already have 2 tablespoons of Shio Koji in this bowl. And I have a separate lesson on making Shio Koji, Shoyu Koji, and Amazake. It's all one lesson. All right, then we're going to add the white miso and then mix these up. All right, now we're going to add the beef, and if there's any rub that's still in your bowl that's not stuck to the beef, you can add that too. And the onions. And then we're going to toss those to mix them really well. Okay, now we're going to put these into a Ziploc bag to marinate. Now you can marinate them, you should marinate them at least 2 hours, but I'm going to marinate them overnight. Okay, so they're actually going to get probably close to 24 hours of marinating. And so we're going to put it all into this bag, and then I'm going to rinse my hands off so I can close the bag. All right, so I'm going to take the bag off my bag filler. You know, this bag filler is really convenient. It's called Jokari, Jokari. I'm going to seal up the bag. Not so easy to do sometimes. What I want to do is I want to press most of the air out of it if I can, and then massage those onions and the beef around a little bit more with that marinade. And then I'm going to put it into the fridge overnight. All right, let's preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Okay, now we're going to brown the beef. I have about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil in the pan here. We're going to put the heat on medium, about medium. Let this oil get hot, and then we're going to brown the beef. All right, now we're going to add the beef to the pan. And you might have noticed that I didn't use salt on it. Why is that? Because it's been marinating in Shio Koji, which is a salt substitute. We're just going to brown those. All right, let's check it out. Oh, we're getting a nice brown there on the beef. All right, we're going to turn them over, do the other side. Okay, let's check out the other side. Okay, we're getting a nice brown on this side as well. We're going to put these pieces of beef into the donabe. Okay, then we're going to add a little bit more olive oil to the pan. The brisket doesn't have much fat, so you know, it's not adding much fat to the pan. So we're going to add a little bit more olive oil, and then we're going to brown the onions. All right, the onions are looking beautiful. Got a nice brown on them. Okay, now we're going to take those onions and we're going to put them into the donabe. Now we want to add about 1/4 cup of sake to the pan and deglaze the pan with that sake and scrape off this fond from the cooking of the beef and the onions. Okay, we're going to put that into the donabe also. I'm going to use a different scraper. Okay, now there's the donabe. We're going to put the this fond into the donabe. And by the way, doing that pretty much cleans your pan. At least most of the stuff that was stuck to the bottom of it has been cleaned out. All right, now I want to add the chicken stock and the beef stock, the rosemary, and the garlic. Now I have this on a different burner than the one that I was browning the beef and the onions, because this donabe cannot be put on the burner without liquid in it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just kind of stir things around a little bit. Then we want to put the heat on it now that it has the stock in it, and we want to bring this to a boil, covered. Okay, we can see that our donabe has come to the boil because the steam is coming out of the little hole in the top. So we're going to turn off the heat and put the donabe into the oven for 2 hours, 350 degrees. Okay, the donabe has been in the oven for 2 hours, about 2 hours. Now we're going to add the bok choy and the radishes, shishito peppers. By the way, you might see that my shishito peppers are red and green. You'll probably never find red ones in the store. I grew these in our garden. If you leave them on the vine long enough, they'll turn red. They do not get hotter, but they're beautiful and they freeze really well too. And then we're going to add the mushrooms. I'm using, I think these are Namiko mushrooms. And then we're going to add the shoyu, which is the Japanese soy sauce. Then the Shio Koji, 2 tablespoons of the Shio Koji. We used half of it earlier for the marinade. Okay, so we're using the rest of it now. Add the lemon juice, the lime juice, and then the red miso that you have dissolved in a little bit of warm water. Why do you do that? Because the red miso is like a paste. And if you just put the paste in there, it's not going to get mixed in very easily, right? So we dissolved it first in a little warm water, and then we're just going to pour it in, and then once we stir it up, it'll be all mixed in. We won't have to worry about dissolving the paste in the in this mixture with all these ingredients in it. Okay, so we got the miso in there now. Now we just want to stir this up a bit, and then and by the way, if there's any need to if there's any scum on the top when you first take the lid off when you get it out of the oven, you can skim that off, but there wasn't any here today. Now we're going to cover it again and put it back into the oven for until the beef is tender. Should take about 2 hours. Okay, so back into the oven. Okay, the Donabe has been in the oven for another couple of hours. It's still bubbling nicely from its residual heat. Let's see what the beef is like. Oh yeah, fork tender, fall apart tender. Okay, good. All right, now the next step is to stir in the pesto. Okay, about 2 tablespoons. Probably got about that here, maybe 2 this might be closer to 3 tablespoons. Stir that in. Okay, now we want to crack the eggs into the Donabe. Okay, we're going to add some heat, medium heat, and we're going to cover it back up and let those eggs set, probably about 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, there we go. Our eggs are kind of poached in there, so we're going to call this finished. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to turn down the heat to low. In fact, I'm just going to turn the heat off because we're about ready to plate up. So we're going to plate up, and then we're going to garnish the individual servings with some scallions. So this is the conclusion of the Donabe 3 braised beef brisket with Shio Koji and vegetables. You can see photos of the final dish on my Instagram, which is @ChefsApprentice, Cook Like a Pro. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.